The Ministry of Agriculture, Food Production, Fisheries, Cooperatives and Rural Development, through its Extension and Advisory Services Division, presents Tutorial for Peri-Urban Home Gardening.
Potato, yams, cassava. These are familiar foods which constitute a major part of our everyday diet, and they are referred to as root crops. I am Vernet James. Stay with me for some valuable tips on growing of root crops.
Root crops make up an essential part of our daily diet. They constitute a dominant portion of a standard meal, and they are rich in essential vitamins and minerals that our bodies require for growth, energy, and overall development. Being such an important part of our diet, it is encouraged that root crops be included in our home garden. Root crops include tubers such as yams, dasheen, potatoes, and cassava, but they also include rooty vegetables such as carrots, beets, and radishes, to name a few. Both groups of root crops are fairly easy to grow and require very little labor. In this tutorial, we focus on tubers. First, decide on which of the crops that is best suited for your location. Once you've decided, identify a source of good planting material to start off your root crop. Let us now take a closer look at some procedures. Sweet potatoes are among the easiest root crops to grow, and once they're established, they will remain in the ground for a very long time. The quickest and easiest way to grow sweet potatoes is through what we call cuttings. Cuttings are slips taken from the vine of the potato plant or small portions of rooted pieces of the tubers. Simply cut a piece of a runner at about 1 foot in length. Then remove all the leaves except for the tiny leaves at the very tip of your slip. When planting, choose a location where there is lots of sunlight, lots of space, and a reasonable amount of water and nutrients. Once this is done, cover the entire length of the slip, leaving only the leaves at the tip of your cutting to stick out. Space your cuttings or slips about 1 foot apart within rows and about 3 to 4 feet between rows. Once established, the cuttings will root at every leaf node, those that are above the ground as well as those below the ground. The best type of soil for growing sweet potatoes is a sandy soil, but they can grow in any soil type. If the soil in your garden is heavy, or if the soil isn't free draining, it would be best to grow sweet potatoes on mounds or ridges. Raising the beds improves the drainage, which is very important and gives the tubers a nice deep soil to develop in. Otherwise, you may end up with small, bent, or crooked potatoes. Sweet potatoes do well under very hot conditions. So the hotter your location, the faster your potatoes will grow and produce. You should avoid waterlogged soils, cold weather, and manure which is high in nitrogen, such as chicken manure. Such fertilizers and manure will encourage growth of plenty leaves and no potatoes. Although sweet potato is a tropical crop, it can survive with very little water once it is already established. However, your freshly planted cuttings will need to be watered regularly. Cassava is another root crop which is quite easy to grow in your yard. It is rich in carbohydrates and other essential nutrients and can be used in a variety of ways in the kitchen. If you wish to establish a cassava plot, here are some things you need to know. Cassava is referred to as a drought-tolerant plant which can grow in areas of poor soil quality. This makes it ideal for people living in remote areas without access to the normal quantity of water required to farm other crops. For best yields, it is wise to choose light to loam soils that are flat or gently sloping. The plant cannot stand waterlogged condition, as this will make the tubers rot. To reduce waterlogging, it's best to make ridges or mounds. If ridges are used, they should be 6 to 10 inches high and at least 1 yard apart. Stony soils are less suitable for cassava or any root crop. Like potatoes, cassava is grown from cuttings obtained from the stem of an existing plant. For your cuttings, you must first identify a good source of planting material. Ensure that your parent plant is sufficiently mature and free from pest or disease infestation. The best cutting material is obtained from plants no younger than 10 months old and is about 2.5 to 4 centimeters thick. With a sharp knife or a secateur, cut the stem, giving one clean cut at each end to obtain as many pieces as you would need. Each cutting should be at least 7 to 12 inches in length, with each having several bud nodes along its length. The top cut should be made at a slant to prevent water from settling there, thereby reducing the problem of rotting. Plant your cuttings with nodes and the sloping end upright in the soil. Bury each one to approximately 15 centimeters into the ground and about 3 feet apart from the other. Within 2 months, the cuttings will root readily and your plants will become established. Growing cassava from start to harvest should take up to 18 months. Dasheen is a favorite of many consumers. It is one of the few root crops that can survive waterlogged conditions, but drainage is still very important wherever Dasheen is planted. Locally, we grow Dasheen under two distinct management systems. If you live in a high rain-fed area, such as Millet or Fosse-Jacques, you could establish a beautiful field of on-land Dasheen under non-flooded conditions. However, if you are in a very dry area, choose a location which is waterlogged or flooded, such as in a drain or a river, to establish a patch of lowland Dasheen. Dasheen is normally planted using suckers taken from a mother plant. It is also grown through mini sets, dissected from a Dasheen corm, or by using the main plant with about a 1/4 inch section of the upper part of the corm, attached to at least 10 to 12 inches of the stalk. Plant your Dasheen 18 to 24 inches apart within rows and 18 to 24 inches apart between rows to a depth of at least 6 inches in the ground. Incorporate a phosphate fertilizer to encourage root development. Usually, Dasheen is ready for harvest 8 to 10 months after planting. Like potatoes, yams are fairly easy to grow. Depending on the variety, the roots will dig into the ground anywhere they can find the space, and the vines will climb onto any support that is available. So ensure that your growing area for yams is ideal for root development and for ease of harvest when the crop is ready. Growing yams from tubers is the most common method used locally. In recent times, we at the Ministry of Agriculture have been promoting the idea of planting yams using mini-set technology. With the technology, your yams should be cut into pieces called sets, each between 400 to 500 grams in weight. Head sets are the best for planting because they contain parts that are ready to grow, giving rise to new plants. After cutting the yams into sets, dip each one in a fungicide solution for a few seconds to prevent them from rotting, and then allow them to dry. Using moist sawdust or coconut coir, cover the sets and place them in a dark, cool place where they will pre-germinate in about 3 to 4 weeks. They could then be planted into the open field. Disease-free tissue culture plantlets can also be purchased at the Union Propagation Station. When planting, fill each planting hole with organic matter. Plant your yam sets 3 feet apart on ridges and 10 centimeters deep in holes. An easy way to remember what month to plant yams is to spell yam backwards. May is the month for planting yams. Remember, root crops are essential to your daily diet and they are easy to grow. Choose a location where there is lots of sunlight, lots of space, and a reasonable amount of water and nutrients. Be sure to obtain planting material from a good source that is mature enough and free from pests and disease. Use the right tool to obtain your cuttings and give one clean cut at a slant to prevent water from settling on the surface. Plant your cuttings or slips at the right spacing between and within rows and at the right depth. Use ridges and mounds to improve drainage and allow the tubers to develop. Phosphate fertilizers encourage root development, so add the correct amount to your garden. Try mini sets to obtain more tubers at a size that is best suited for cooking. Different root crops require different growing conditions, so be sure to follow the instructions carefully.
So you are well on your way to harvesting your main staples right from your backyard. Until next time, I am Vernet James. We thank you for viewing.